Hey guys, JStars360 here with my review of Monsters University. Um, First off, and I know I did a mini view of it, but again, that was a mini view. That was just something to hold you guys over until I had time to sit down and do a more full-length review where I go into my thoughts of the film. And did you guys just see that bug fly by? Little monster. Anyway, so again, I apologize for the delay on this. I've been busy with my life. I hope the mini view is enough to hold you guys over, but now it's time for the review. Actually, before I get into the review, I think I owe you guys an explanation, because if you guys remember in the video, my thoughts going into Monsters University, I said I'm not that big. Personally, I haven't been that big a fan of Pixar's recent films. I wasn't that big of a Monsters Inc. fan, and I probably wasn't going to rush out into theaters and see Monsters University. But I was with some friends, and we were walking around like this shopping complex, and there was like a movie theater nearby, and they're like, "Oh, let's go see Monsters University." I'm like, I've seen all Pixar's films, so I figured, I'll go along, watch Monsters University. Go with the group. So that's what I did. I really didn't expect this film to be anything. I was hoping it would be good, and I had people who had seen the movie who were fans of the original Monsters Inc. and loved Monsters University, so that gave me a bit of optimism, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know, will it be good? And there were moments in the movie where I was like, this is probably going to be a 5. But I'm going to admit right now, it's not Pixar's best. It's probably one of their weaker films. Going into this film, I went into it not expecting much. And from the perspective of someone who isn't that big of a Monsters Inc. fan, who really didn't expect much for this film, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was a decent flick. I mean, it probably one of the better children. It was a film made for children, but in terms of children's films, it was one of the better children's films. And as time went on, I got more and more interested into it. And every year there's that film that surprises me, and this one is it. But enough generalizing, let's get into more specifics. Before I go any further, I just want to say this is going to be a general review, where I'll just be pretty general about the movie. I will at some point in the near future, hopefully near future, do a spoiler-filled review of Monsters University, because there's certain specific things in the film I want to talk about, but if I talk about them, I'm going to be giving away a bit too much of the movie. So, yeah. So, if you're worried about the movie being spoiled, don't worry. Any spoilers here will be really minor, really won't ruin that much for you. So, alright. So, like, for example, I'm about to summarize the first 20 minutes of the movie. Alright, so the world of Monsters Inc. For the two of you that don't know what it is, Monsters Inc. is a world where basically it's the concept of what if monsters are in our closet. And the point is, monsters live in their own world, and they have these special doors that correspond to doors in the real world. And they use these doors to come out of children's closets and scare them, so they can use their scream energy to power children's scares. And Monsters University is about Mike and Sully, who in Monsters Inc. they were the top scarers at Monsters Inc. #1. Monsters University shows how Mike and Sully met and how they got there. Now, one thing that this movie does clever is the shift in focus, which was tried with Cars 2 but failed, which is that, alright, I'm going to have to talk about Cars for a second. Cars, the focus was McQueen. Cars 2, the focus was Mater. And the issue I had with that was it didn't feel natural, because they kept advertising it was McQueen and Mater, or there was a poster where McQueen was at the front and center and Mater was right behind McQueen, implying, McQueen's the main character, Mater's like the side character. But really, Mater was the focus, and that just pissed me off, because I just found Mater really annoying. Monsters University, they do something similar, but it feels more natural. It works. With Monsters Inc., the focus of the movie was Mike and Sully, but it felt Sully was more the focus of the movie than Mike. Like Sully was more the like if you had to tell me who was the main character and side character, I'd say Sully was more the focus and Mike was more the side character. Here, this is more Mike's movie. Mike Wazowski is clearly the focus of this movie, and Sully is a bit more in the background. And that feels really natural and smart. Sully had his arc, now let's give Mike his. Okay, Sully has an arc in MU, but Mike is clearly the focus. Which is might be a bit jarring, and I will admit it is a bit jarring for me, but again, it's Mike and Sully are the focus of the movie. We're just getting a bit more of one than the other. So, anyway, sorry, I got sidetracked. Back to the story. So, this is the story of how Mike and Sully met and become top scares. So, Mike, ever since he was a little boy, he's wanted to be a scare. He was inspired when he saw this one guy at Monsters, Inc. do an awesome job scaring the shit out of this kid. And Mike was like, oh my gosh, you're so scary. How do I become as scary as you? And the guy's like, well, you go to the school I went to, Monsters University. So Mike, his whole life, his dream, become #1 scare. And the way he's going to do that is to go to Monsters University. And Mike is smart, he's excelling in his classes, but despite all his efforts, he, along with Sully, who he meets at Monsters University, they fail their scaring final. So now they're off the scaring program, and they're done. But there's this thing that's held every year called the Scaring Games, which reminds me of the Hunger Games for some reason, which is where all the frat houses, and if you don't know what frat houses or scaring programs or college programs or stuff, any of this is, that's a whole nother conversation. So basically all the frat houses compete in a competition. Sorry. I had something on my tongue there that was distracting me. Anyway, so all the frat houses compete in these competitions, which each of them are related to different scaring feats, like sneaking, scaring, all this stuff. And the frat house that wins, all the monsters in there will be deemed the scariest in the school. So Mike and Sully have the idea to join a frat house and enter the scare games and prove that they are scary monsters. But the problem is the only frat house will take them is Uzma Kappa. Yeah, there are lots of clever frat and fraternity names, frat and sorority names, fraternity and sorority names in Monsters University. And Uzma Kappa is the only one that can take them. Problem is, Uzma Kappa sucks. They have the monsters in there aren't scary at all. They're nice, but they're not scary or anything. They suck. So now Mike and Sully have to learn, who have a bit of a rivalry going, have to learn to work together and at the same time help the other Uzma Kappa guys improve and find their strength to thus win the scare games and become monsters. So, this story may seem silly and childish, but it's well done. Alright, first off, I'm just going to give you the rundown really quick how I felt. Opening was cute. I go more into that in my spoiler review, but it was generally cute. It was, someone who saw Monsters, Inc. as a kid, it was really nice. Then after that, it slowed down. But when you get to the scare game, it picks up. Once the scare games pick up, the film gets really interesting. Some of the challenges they have to do are fun and creative. And so that's cool. There's also some nice jokes, some nice humor. There's some cute moments. There's a lot of nods to Monsters, Inc., which fans of that film will appreciate. Let's see, I also one thing that annoyed me, and that kind of annoys me in the film, again, first 20 minutes of the film or so I found, except for the opening scene, I found were kind of boring. But one thing that kind of slowed the movie down for me, and it wasn't that big of a problem, but it was every now and then it would become an issue, is they do the thing where the main characters argue, and of course you know they're going to become friends, and they don't do it too much with Mike and Sully. Again, I think a lot of the film is focuses more on them becoming friends as opposed to them becoming friends as opposed to them. Movie focuses more on them becoming friends than on them arguing with each other. But every now and then we'll get there was enough of them arguing to the point where it was kind of getting annoying. Like, I get it, they hate each other. Can we just focus on them becoming friends? Because it's really hard for me to feel sad when everyone's arguing and moping and doping, when I know they're going to get together. But again, they don't focus on it really much, and there's a lot more of the characters coming together, and I like seeing these characters come together. It's enjoyable and satisfying to see these, like, terrible scares, like, just go from sucking to, like, dominating the scare games. I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say that. And it feels really genuine seeing them come together, because it takes the whole movie for Mike and Sully they gradually become friends. Almost like how a real relationship would work. And again, the heart of the movie is the relationship between Mike and Sully. Probably more so than Monsters, Inc., which was the relationship between Boo and Sully. And, it's a nice relationship. They both learn things from each other, and I generally like the resolution they have of each other at the end of the movie. Let's see, what else? If you're a fan of Mike Wazowski, you're probably going to love this movie, because Mike is clearly... Again, Mike's the focus of the film. You really are meant to sympathize with him. One person you're not going to like probably so much is Sully. For a good chunk of this movie, he's kind of an asshole, and for some people that's really going to turn them off. I've seen a couple reviewers, Animated Heroine, Electric Dragon 505, who it just annoyed them to see their favorite childhood character become an asshole. And I agree. I mean, Sully's so sweet and lovable. Monsters, Inc. And here, for a good chunk of the movie, he's like a douchebag. And again, it bothers me, but again, at the same time, they're trying to, show an arc, show character progression, and eventually he does sort of become the Sully we all know and love. Let's see. Randall's in this movie, although he doesn't really do much. It's good to see him again. And there's a nice little explanation for why him and Sully are rivals, but he's not really the focus. But for some people have said, oh, Randall doesn't do any, I wish they had done more with Randall. I'm glad, look, just be glad he was in there and had played some of a role in the story and was not just like a brief cameo. Because, and again, he is a main character in Monsters, Inc., and it would be kind of weird if he just sort of fell into the background here, but again, he's active, he does enough. And quite honestly, I don't think he needs to be the villain again. This is more explaining how they become enemies as opposed to having him be the enemy. And, I was generally surprised with how Randall was in this movie. And on the note of that, one thing I like is there's no real villain in the movie. I mean, there's kind of a villain. I mean, there's this awesome frat house on campus. It's like the best, and the guy in charge of it, he's kind of the villain because he's kind of like Deuce McCappy. You guys can't do it. By the way, the name of this dominant frat house is Roar Omega Roar. Again, with the cool frat names. And he's like, you guys can't win, you suck. So, but again, he's not really the villain, he's just more of a you can't do it voice. And then there's another kind of antagonist in the form of the headmistress, who is a really cool design, by the way, and really good voice acting. And she's also kind of the villain because, again, she doesn't really believe in Mike and Sully, that they're scary and they can pull it off. So, but again, they're just more there as like the voice saying you can't do it as opposed to an actual threat. Again, the real conflict is the characters, is personal, overcoming them, becoming scary, overcoming these obstacles, you believing in themselves and learning to work together. That's the conflict. And I think that's really interesting, and that for me is far more interesting than if this was just another Mike and Sully versus Randall movie. Character-wise, there's some new characters, like Inuyasha Kappa and Roar Omega War, but generally I didn't find those characters that interesting. They really weren't that memorable or funny, in my opinion. I'm sure there's some people out there who like them. Like, there's this one guy, I think his name is Marshmallow, who some people find funny. I personally didn't find him funny. The one character I thought was pretty funny and got in a few good laughs was the mom. Again, if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's pretty funny, but she only gets in there for like a couple scenes, and I wish they had used her more because she's like probably like one of the funniest things in the movie. Outside of this one other character who, at the end, who I'm again not gonna spoil anything. And let's see what anything else I need to talk about. Characters likable. Oh yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but one or two characters from Monster. No, not one. There are cameo. You do see other characters from Monsters Inc. in Monsters University as a quick cameo. I won't say which ones appear in this review, but there are some cameos, so fans of Monsters Inc. rejoice. Let's see. Alright. Again, cute film. It really doesn't offer much for adults, which is one criticism. It's more of a kid's film. But, again, that's how it is. And this review's going on longer. So, before I go real quick, just want to talk about two things. First off, I'm going to briefly talk on why I think this movie's pretty good and why it, in my opinion, surprised me, but briefly, because, again, if I want to go into more depth about this, I'd have to go into spoilers, which is that this movie was not as predictable as I thought. Like, going into this movie, I thought I knew how everything was going to play out. I thought I knew the entire story through and through. But what makes this movie, I don't want to say great, but enjoyable, is that you don't know where it's, I mean, you think you know where it's going, but you don't. You know what's going to happen, and you think you know how it's going to happen, but that's not how it's going to happen. The film generally surprised me in how it got to where, because we know how it's going to end, but what surprised me is how it got there. Like, I generally did not expect the film to reach the ending it did via the way it did. And again, if you've seen the film, you probably will understand what I'm talking about, and spoiler review will cover that more, but generally surprised me. The end of the film, like the last 10 to 15 minutes of it, was Pixar quality. Like, the rest of the film was like, or alright, or like, it's cute, but the last 10 to 15 minutes was brilliant. Like, it was really clever. It was like, it felt like a Pixar movie. It was Pixar quality. Good writing, good characters, a lot of heart. I think if you're a fan of Monsters Inc., you're like a diehard Extreme fan, and you're enjoying this movie up until this point, you might tear up at the end because there's kind of really touching scene. So, yeah. Lastly, presentation. This film looks nice, better than Monsters Inc. The technology is improved, but one thing that concerned me was that this movie wasn't going to feel like Monsters Inc. because the animation has changed so much, but it manages to feel like Monsters Inc. Characters look nice. Monster designs are far more complex. We have Animat pointed this out, but they had a lot of trouble animating Sully's fur in Monsters Inc. But now that they mastered that, they can make the fur on Sully more detailed, but they can also do more complex designs for the other monsters. So fur, scales, all that good stuff. I was a little skeptical about how Mike and Sully were going to look in this movie at first, but, it makes sense. They're younger versions of themselves. Excuse me. They should look younger and different, and eventually do warm up to the designs. And animation-wise, this film looks pretty good. I mean, nothing in this movie blew me away, but again, it generally looked nice. There's this great shot in, like, the final act of the film, which I'll talk about later in my spoiler review. But it looked nice. Campus looked nice. It didn't blow me away, but, it still looked nice. So, yeah. So overall, Monsters University surprised me. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not an amazing film. It's probably a weak Pixar film, but it's smart, it's charming, surprised me at certain points, and kind of gave me a bit more faith in Pixar, especially towards the end. I don't, if I'd, as to who I'd recommend this film to, um, fans of Monsters Inc. should check out this film. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's, if not on the same, it's even if it's not as good as Monsters Inc. It may it works. It works as a prequel. It feels believable as the backstory. It's enjoyable. Like it's not as enjoyable as the first one, but it's still enjoyable. And it may be a weak Pixar film, but it's not a bad film. It's enjoyable. Problem is Pixar set the bar so high that anything just good or okay is just considered a bad Pixar film. But again, fans of the first film Monsters Inc. should definitely check this film out, and kids, because this is a kids movie and it's a well done kids movie. Kids are gonna be, again, you'll be happy to see these characters again. Opening kind of slow, picks up at the scare games, then last 10 to 15 minutes really good. Again, check it out. It's a cute film, more or less enjoyable as predecessor. I don't think it's as good as its predecessor, but still enjoyable. Just when you go into this film, just either if you're not a diehard Monsters Inc. fan, just don't set your expectations high. This is not going to be another Up or Toy Story 3. It'll just be a cute little film. So just keep that in mind. I would not recommend this film if you weren't a fan of the first film because, again, it's more of the same. So, again, it's not doing anything extremely different. So, again, if you didn't like the first one, you're probably not going to enjoy the second one. You might even like the second one even less. And I know some people have, like Doug Walker. And yeah, that's all I have to say at this point. I'm just rambling. Sorry this video went on so long, but I wanted to get this off done. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Cute film. Check it if you're a fan of the first one. Check it out, although you probably have if you're a fan of the first one at this point. And before I go, oh yeah, there's a short before the movie called Blue Umbrella. It's cute. And yeah, so overall, cute film. Enjoyed it. Fans of first one, check out the second one. It's probably gonna get a Best Animated Film nomination. And that's all I have to say. JStar360, signing out. I'll have no wait, not signing out yet. I have a spoiler-filled review coming, and hopefully in the near future, but I don't want to make any promises. And I'm gonna have an update video for something else that I could be probably gonna be working on either sometime later today or tomorrow. I'm gonna upload that video, and yeah, JStar360 signing out.